Hi, this is Charlie Mato-Toyela with another video on making and playing the Native American flute. This time, per the request of lots of subscribers and just friends and everybody alike, I'm going to show you how to make some flutes out of different materials. You know, everybody doesn't have sawgrass or river cane or bamboo or anything like this at their disposal, but you got some of everything else in the world. There's so much you can use to make flutes with. This guy right here is a piece of a saw palmetto, and it's the stem that goes to the seed head. The flowers are up on top of this guy, and it's a very neat, very special plant. The saw palmetto is a medicine plant that especially men use for a lot of things that are, you know, men-related health needs. But anyway, it's a good plant and a really neat core inside of it too. It's kind of fibrous and really kind of pithy at the same time. When I say pithy, it's like a marshmallow core. A lot of these other plants have that too. This one is a sunflower stalk. Now this sunflower stalk I collected while it was still green after the flower head had died and it was on its way out. You can see it has a neat core in the middle of it. The core in this one is very, very spongy, very pithy, much like a marshmallow, and you can see how far I've pushed it in. Now imagine back 1,000 years ago having all these sunflowers everywhere and not having a whole bunch of flutes and wanting to make some. How easy it would be just to push this stuff through. There's a lot of trials and tribulations that those people went through back in the day. Might not have been as easy for them, may have been easier for them. You know, there's a lot of things that hold us back today, like cell phones and tablets and, you know, all the like, computers, but they can also be used for tools. And likewise, I hope that this helps you out. You can see how far I pushed it in just with my finger. Imagine using a stick to carefully push it in. How much further you can go. Wow, I think I just made half a flute there. That's wild. Now, one bad thing about using a plant like a sunflower stalk is it has these holes in it. Usually where the limbs come out, there'll be a hole. We can fix that. That's not a problem. This hole here is partially covered. If I poke it through, it'll come out. But that would make an excellent flute. And this one here has a potential to make a flute of either a G or maybe an A, or a traditionally tuned flute of any type. You can always make out of a piece of material regardless of its size. Now this one you might recognize and think, oh, that's a piece of sawgrass like I've seen in your other videos, but it's not. This stuff here's solid. And likewise, this is actually, and amazing as it does look very much like sawgrass, it comes from another type of grass plant, from the maize grass plant. This is a piece of corn. Here are a couple of other pieces of corn, and you can see how pretty it's even got kind of a nice shine on it. This piece has been sitting in the back of the shop forever. It also has this core inside of it, kind of a pithy core. This is also a piece of corn. The same piece that I collected from the field where I got these other two. But if you notice, what I'm going to do is just kind of buff him off a little bit. It's got a beautiful antique look to it. And after you buff it, look how shiny it is. So many of these materials that are available to you. And you know, the corn is a great flute. I've made lots of corn flutes. They make a wonderful sounding flute. But one thing you'll notice, like I say, having that core inside of it, you're going to have to find a way to get it out. And as you can probably hear my fire burning in the background, I've got a really big burning rod hot. And this is the easiest way to get that core out of the middle of the corn plant. You've got to be careful though, and I'm not promising that this is going to work for you, because without a lot of practice, it smells like popcorn. Anyway, without a lot of practice, you could easily burn through the side of this piece of material. So many other ways you can do this too. Here's a long drill bit, and without using a drill, I just recommend using it by hand, you know. Poke it in there and drill it around a little bit, pull it out, some chunks will come out, go back, and come out. There's a way to get that core out of there. Bump it, lots of it comes out that way. When I put my rod back inside of it, this is just a rod that I've got heating up on a fire back here, and look how much further it went. Wow. A gas pocket. Still smells like popcorn. Gas pocket, and it's coming out of a bug hole, so Not sure what the bug had going on there, but it's not happening anymore. Anyway, so this would make a really nice flute. Reasonably durable, not terrifically durable, but somewhat. So we've got lots of materials here to make flutes out of. Here's one of my favorite. This is another piece of sunflower stalk. This one has aged out. It's kind of dusty and what have you, but if you, once again, use some steel wool on it, you'll find that it makes a really unique design because of the grain on this guy. The fibers and the grain on him are on the outside of the plant instead of on the inside of the plant. It's what makes sunflowers strong enough to hold those giant seed heads on them. Now this guy here, once again, what I'm going to do is find the place that I want to start, go around it in a circle like this, just like you're cutting a piece of PVC. Just score it on the outside, very carefully snap it off, a few fibers poking out there. This piece will make a wonderful flute. A really amazing flute. I think I'm going to use my friend here. How about that? Wow. When they cure out, it's a lot easier than it is when they're fresh and green. And likewise, there are lots of plants. Whoops, blew my side out there. You guys are thinking, oh no, well, it's an old piece of sunflower stalk. I'm going to go ahead and trim them down right here. Once again, just like the corn, the longer you let him sit, the neater he begins to look. This little tube would make a wonderful flute body. You could even put a mouthpiece on it made out of wood or out of some other material, broom handle, whatever you've got. Something else you can make a flute out of. Anyway, one of my favorite plants, I think, in the entire world to make flutes out of is this one. This is something that I've got a few of growing right now. We usually have a good handful of them growing, and you may or may not have access to them, but I'm going to show you something about him. Snap him off. If you look in there, he's completely hollow. Not only is it completely hollow, but it's nice and round inside, even though the outside's a little misshapen. The inside's a little round, and has a nice slick, not really a pith, but a nice slick covering on the inside too. Really neat plant. This is a tobacco plant. The species doesn't really matter. The tobacco plant, usually they grow reasonably hollow. I think I'll go ahead and make a flute out of this one. Most of you have probably seen our 4-hole whistle making video. I don't mind refreshing your memory on the dimensions here just to give you an idea. Let's see here. My trusty, inexpensive little caliper. So the inside diameter of this particular piece is slightly larger than my pattern flute that I'm going to make. Copying, it's about 11 millimeters in diameter on the inside, maybe closer to 10, maybe close to 10. And I'm going to go ahead and mark the sound hole here close to this area. The most important thing is to leave some excess on the bottom. And I'm going to, let's see, the first marking for the first fingering here is going to be roughly 65 millimeters from the center of this hole to the center of the first fingering, and from the first fingering to the next we're looking at 15 millimeters from the first hole to the next hole. The next one's a little different. Doesn't have to be perfect. Can't say it enough. This isn't rocket science. The next one is about 17 millimeters from the second hole to the third hole. I'm holding them upside down really, but, and then from the third to the final hole is roughly 16 millimeters, about 15 and a half. And then from the bottom hole, the fourth hole, to the end, let's go ahead and make it 45 millimeters just to be on the safe side. We'll cut it down to 10. So now we've got this guy here, really good looking blank and there's a number of ways that you can make the holes in it. Let's see, here's an X-Acto knife. It's one method. You're very careful and concentrate more on the drilling action than the poking part of the action. You'll be less likely to damage it. Any of you hear that little crack noise? It's me poking a little harder than what I need to be. Any of you remember the video of me making the flute in the park? Sometimes making a little tool out of a piece of harder wood to help you drill the holes out is not a bad idea. I personally, on something like this, and I've not been doing it in front of the camera, would have used my burning tool to do it. And I'll show you why. Even though I marked the holes with my knife and started them with my knife, which you could continue on with, I'm going to go ahead and burn the rest of the holes out. Like I say, in addition to using a knife to start it, you can use a pencil, you can use anything else to... thanks for cooling that rod off. And you can use that. You see how nice and round using another tool after starting the hole makes it? We're going to do the same thing with this burning tool. Really simple stuff. So my little burning tools, this thing here was I think a coat hanger. Even looks like a cigar, right? Kind of cool. A tobacco flute. You gotta love that. It's just too cool. Let's see what it looks like when it's buffed. Changes it a little bit. I think I might send this one to my buddy that has a cigar named after him. Greyhawk Perkins. I'll go ahead and send him a tobacco whistle. I think he'll love that. So anyways, let's see. Just burning the holes out a little bit. One thing to keep in mind on tuning this 4-hole whistle that's really important is not to overdo it. Don't make the holes too large. I mean, I'm making the holes this size because I'm pretty sure that they're going to turn out the same way thousands of other these guys have ever turned out. But you want to start off with a small hole. Really, something about 2 millimeters in diameter would be good. Once again, the size of a small coat hanger. These holes here are actually about 3 millimeters in diameter. And if I guess right, they probably need to be just a little bit larger because the inside diameter is not quite the same size as my pattern. And my pattern's holes are the same size as this, so you'll figure it out. We'll have another video on tuning here soon. And of course, don't forget, our flute making book's coming out pretty soon, so that you'll be able to follow through and see all the patterns and shapes and sizes and different ways to make flutes. So we've done that part of the flute process, and let's go ahead and go to the next stage. Just looking for a burning tool here. I think I've got it set out already. And once again, don't have to use a burning tool. Here's a simple jeweler's file. So easy to obtain, and you could go in and file this thing out instead. We had a class with another Cherokee tribe who we did with their youth group, and we made the sound holes using this file like this. Just filing the little area down. After you get it filed square, then you can come back and file that in so that it's nice and slanted. File's a good handy tool. I've used that one for a lot of things. While we're waiting for that rod to heat up, it should be just another second, I'm going to go ahead and put some of these extra pieces away. I think my burning rod may be getting close to hot here. I'm just going to go ahead and square this off a little bit. If you notice me blowing every time I burn something, it keeps the smoke out of my face and keeps me from breathing it because I'm exhaling. And nice little slant there. My burning rod's getting cool. And if it's good for you guys, I'm going to use a belt sander for just a second so I can speed this up. And once again, I have a bad habit of saying you guys when I know there's ladies that watch our videos. But anyways, so what I did was just sand the top of it. It's nice and smooth now. And go back and use your X-Acto knife to clean some of this up. burning tool is hot. Once again, just going to go ahead and okay, not too shabby, kind of a neat looking little flute. One thing that a lot of you may have seen me do before, but may not have understood what was going on, is I use super glue for a couple of different reasons. This reason, I'm going to go back and strengthen this little area here. Keep in mind, this is cyanacrylic glue, and cyanacrylic glue has some vapors, some fumes that come off of it that are bad, and may have some adverse effects. Read all the labels, warnings, make sure you follow them whenever you're using anything like this. All I did was put it there because this is a soft material. I put it on top of there to make it a little bit harder. Cyanacrylic glue will eventually harden. The acrylic would stay behind and become a nice little protective film on this thing, so that's kind of cool. The next thing I'm going to do really quick here is just use something to poke some of the loose fibers out of here. And next we need to make our plug. Just like our other 4-hole whistles have plugs, this guy here is going to need a plug. And this dowel is a little bit too small. This one's a little bit too big, so if you'll excuse me, I'm going to sand it down just for a second. You want to push it in there too tight because you may crack this fragile material. Okay, it won't look too shabby. You cut it off. And the next step is the one where everybody seems to have a little difficulty doing when they're making 4-hole whistles. 4-hole whistles not that tricky. People have been doing this for a long time. We've got a dowel now that fits in here almost perfectly. What I'm going to do is sand one side of it flat on a slanted angle. Just to give you a start, this part's still round here. This part started to slant like that. So now we've got a nice little slant here. And you want the end of your slant, get my nice pointing tool, you want this piece, the fat part of it here, to be about the width of your sound hole area. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Most of them pretty obvious. Let's see. Let's see what it sounds like. It sounds like it's trying to play a major scale instead of a minor scale. All these 4-hole whistles, if this is your first time seeing one of our videos, all of our 4-hole whistles and most of our flutes that we make are all minor pentatonic. So they may have the potential to play in another mode or like a major scale or what have you, but this dude here is going to be made to be minor. Still sounds a little bit airy. Probably a little bit more we can do to fix that in a second. However, we want to make sure we get this guy in tune. So I'm going to heat up one more burning rod, and I'll show you how to tune these without knowing the sizes or dimensions or, you know, any of that stuff. You don't really have to know all of that. Okay, so my burning tool is getting hot, and let's see what it sounds like after we enlarge the holes just a little bit. it sounds like it's a little too high-pitched, and I might need to make it a little bit lower. Most people say you can't do that, but I think I learned otherwise. And that sounds pretty good. And all I'm doing is holding my finger over the hole while I'm playing at the bottom. So that means if I were to put something down there, then I could do that. Sounds like something I do every day. So let's pick out a piece of river cane or sawgrass here that looks like it's going to be the right size. And we'll use it as a plug. And the purpose of the plug is going to be basically to restrict the airflow. Restricting the airflow will make it lower in tone. And the easiest way to do this, of course, is our handy dandy super glue. So let's see. Notice I still haven't put my plug in there tight yet. It's just kind of loose and sitting there because I don't know if that's where I want it yet or not. Now, if you didn't have a piece of sawgrass, you could of course use just about anything. You could use a piece of the tobacco stalk where it's smaller. It does get smaller at the top, so that would be an option. All I've done is super glue that little piece of sawgrass in there. Okay. Cut it off. Sand it down. I'm going to use a burning rod just to clean some of the scar tissue up. I'll leave it heating up just in case I need it. Let's see what it sounds like. Of course, the old acid test on making sure this guy is in tune is playing it in the major key. You can check our videos on how to do that. Kind of neat. The top note's a little hard to get, but possibly the material it's made of, possibly the diameter it is, a number of things. But I'm going to set him aside. Later I'll glue this plug in place so it's solid and everything, which will also improve the tone of the flute quite a bit. Making sure that the plug is glued in and there's no air leaks or anything around there is a world of difference from the way that it was. So there is a tobacco stalk flute, really great one. Here's another good piece of material I didn't show you earlier. This is the seed head from one of our sawgrass plants. Now, the seed head is different. It looks the same probably to most of you, but this is majorly different from the actual sawgrass plant itself. Number one, this seed head came off of off of a large sawgrass, so sawgrass would have been bigger, seed head much smaller. The seed head is a hollow shaft. They're usually about 3 or 4 feet long, so you can cut lots of 4-hole whistles and small flutes out of it. But the difference between this and the rest of the sawgrass is there's no links. There are no nodes or partitions inside of it. It's completely hollow. It makes a good drinking straw. Seriously. That's what people used to use for drinking straws. So kind of neat. I've made a very special sawgrass flute for someone out of this, and it's a really neat plant. So like I said, this is good. You don't have sawgrass once again. The pampas grass, I believe, has the same hollow shaft because they're in the same family and have very similar, plants. But the pampas grass has a core in most of it. However, the seed heads, I believe, are completely hollow. So I set that guy separate because I save him for special occasions. And then the next thing we're going to do, this is one of my other favorite pieces of material to make a flute out of. It's an elderberry. Elderberry, very special, very good medicine plant. I think I'm going to do my holes on it first. Elderberry does not grow completely hollow. It's mostly hollow with a spongy, pithy core inside. There are some small holes at the links that are not really too big of a problem, but a little drop of super glue in a minute will take care of it. Just made a good friend of mine, Mr. Bill Bomar, a flute out of this stuff that we collected at the mound site. And it was discarded. Neat plant. Love elderberry. And let's see here. Elderberry is, of course, also a medicine plant. I think we've talked about that before in another video. I'm going to make this one a little bit different. It's not going to have a long mouthpiece, just a little short mouthpiece. That's all it really needs. And the inside diameter, compared to my 4-hole flute here, is really close to the same. I'm going to do something a little different to make sure the flute plays properly. I'm going to put all of the plain fingerings slightly north, closer to the mouthpiece area, the sound hole area. Putting them slightly north, and it's just so slight that you probably don't even see it's a millimeter different. But I'm going to do that so that the smaller diameter material will make a better sounding flute. We'll talk about that too sometime in the very near future. It is in my book. So let's set this guy down. I'm going to grab this tiny little hot burning rod, burn some holes out. Keep that burning right up again. I haven't completely poked the inside of it out yet. Lots of ways we can do that. Once again, drill bit by hand. Most of that part's gone. There's some of it in here though. Not too bad. This is a good piece of material. Nice shape, nice color, kind of neat looking texture on it. Steel wool is really good on flutes. I'll tell you the hole pattern here in just a second. I have to make sure I offer you that with every one of the videos. So there's that. Have the 4 holes, about to make the mouthpiece area. And then we'll have to build a plug for it of some kind or another. I'm wondering how I should go about that. So many different ways to make the plug area. Let's see, this dowel here. Ooh, that one's good. How about that? Perfect fit. Yep, not too shabby. Let's go ahead and start this guy. Going to make 2 holes up here, one I marked and one I didn't. I'll put my other burning tool back on. So now we have 2 holes up here. This is the one that I marked, which is the sound area. Very important to have it in the right place. Put it too far down here, it's going to throw the tone of these flutes out. Put it too far up, the same thing. Once again, we'll talk about the tuning and everything a little bit further in future videos. We've got some other videos we've talked about tuning and tuning it to European scales and tuning them to themselves and all this, but we'll get into the details of that for any of you advanced flute makers that are wondering how in the world do you figure out that, you know? Anyway, so we've got the air supply hole and the sound hole. However, it's completely hollow inside. So being that it's completely hollow inside, we need to put a plug in there, which is where this is going to come in handy. Of this dowel. I'm going to poke them inside in just a minute. I'd like to burn my holes out first. Once again, any of you that are seeing this for the very first time, please be sure to check out our other videos. We have videos on this burning tool, how to make them if you need to make your own, or if you want to buy one, we have them on our website. We also have videos on how to make the sound chamber area here, the track area. All of the stuff that I'm about to do really quick like in front of you is something that we have an individual separate video on. So lots of good information there, I hope. Got one YouTube subscriber that says that I have a lot of prattle. You know, I speak Old English, but I had to look prattle up. Oh my gosh. I like to consider it informative filler. But I want to make sure that I offer you all of the information I have. Some people don't like to watch videos where it's so boring. This needs to be 4 millimeters north of that. Oh my gosh. My dad used to say it takes all kinds. And I'm like, no it doesn't, Dad. It just takes a couple different kinds. You know, some good people would be good. But anyway, let's see here. We'll burn the top hole. And now come the more important parts, which I'm going to go ahead and install this plug first. And you notice I'm pushing it in here. I'm pushing it past the air supply hole. I'm going to push it all the way to the edge. If I go too far, I'm going to get a smaller dowel and push it back this way. Go all the way to the edge of the sound chamber. And if you notice, inside of the flute here we have a nice little square hole. There's a plug in it now in exactly the right place. It's hanging over a little bit in the sound or in the supply hole, no problem. It needs to be right at the edge of the sound chamber, the backside edge that is. So there's that. Let's get this burning tool. I'm going to go in and kind of lift up to get our angle here. And while we're letting the rod heat up, this is called time utilization. Usually while my burning tool is heating up, I will be doing 10 other things. It looks like this tube is out of super glue, so if you wouldn't mind, camera person, camera wife, hand me a new tube of super glue. Thanks so much. Alrighty. Anyways, just put enough super glue inside that it kind of coats the dowel that I pushed in there. I'm going to come back and do the same thing on this side. Once again, blowing out. I do not like the smell of super glue. I do not like it in a house. I do not like it in a blouse. No. I'm always making a funny face. Anyways, so hopefully she can hold it back, or you're going to hear a crack up on camera. Making the track area now. A couple of different stages sometimes you can do to making the track area. You can use just one tool if you want. My buddy Harjo uses just a chisel like this. It's actually one he gave me. It's a good method. I'm very partial with my fire, of course. But I do love this chisel, man. It's the best thing for cleaning up the track area. And if you notice, I'm using my finger to help guide it, but I'm also using that so that if I jab myself, I don't even feel I feel my fingernail hitting me. So kind of a neat idea. It's called Woodworking 101. Or maybe this is whittling. So back to the track area, track tool. And except for the fire, this could really be a piece of PVC. Lots of people make PVC flutes. I've not yet to date made a single PVC flute that I can remember. I don't think I have. I've made them out of just about anything else in the entire world, but not PVC. I made flutes out of bones, out of arrow shafts. That's kind of a neat idea. Made some out of aluminum arrow shafts. We've got an unfinished one over here somewhere. My wife has one that I made for her out of a aluminum drinking straw, which was kind of nice. It turned out to be a pretty good little whistle. I made a eagle whistle for my youngest son out of that same drinking straw, and it works out pretty good. The thing about the track area here, and something I may not have ever mentioned in any of the other videos, is the depth of it is marginally important. It's slightly important, and you know, a lot of people make it too deep, it'll become airy. Make it too shallow, it won't play right. If you're not careful, you can make it wrong altogether, and it won't play at all. The track area, as well as the sound hole here, determine the key of the flute, what tone it puts out. So many very important things that really there's not a rhyme or reason on each individual flute that it plays in one key or the other, because the inside diameter may vary slightly. And I think I'm really close here on this guy. I just need to put a block on it so I can tell what it's going to sound like. And I think I've got a spare rounded block right back here. This rounded block I have is one we made in our flute kit preparation video, and it's going to come in kind of handy here. Kind of saddles down right on top of the flute grid. Wow, that's not too shabby. I'm going to grab one of my clamps. I think I've got one laying over here somewhere. And just clamp this guy down just temporarily until I figure out what I'm going to do with him. Let's see what it sounds like. Not too bad. Needs a little tweaking up here, but that's not really a big deal. So the top note when you blow is a little too high. And if the top note is too high and the bottom note's right on the money, then it sounds like, what does that sound like? It sounds like maybe the bottom of it is, the flute's maybe too short. We could put a plug in the bottom of it like I did the last flute. Nice little full hole whistle there. Let's see. Let's do one other thing. Let's go ahead and burn these holes slightly larger and see what that does for us. I've left my track tool in the burner. I'll go ahead and use that since it's hot here anyway. And of course in the shop, being that we make so many flutes out of so many natural materials and so many different sizes, we have an extremely graduated set of burning tools. Those I don't think I'm ever going to offer for sale because it is just so hard obtaining these, you know, different rods and everything, and using them for different size flutes and what have you. My best suggestion is ingenuity. Okay, once again using a file. sometimes a little effort goes into making a really good flute, and you might be extremely surprised what comes out of it. Just a little extra effort here. Sandpaper can do the same thing. I've got a good friend, Bob said use fingernail files, and you know, those are great because you can trim them down to whatever size. Okay. Let's see where we're at here. You guys are thinking, uh-oh, you done messed it up. That's the same thing that happened to me. No. Just had it slid down too far. Not a problem though. Let's see what it sounds like when I turn it around. I like it better the other way. Let's try it upside down. Maybe that'll make a difference. I'll hold this with my hand this time. Nope, nothing. We're definitely going to have a rounded block. I'm probably eventually going to cut it from a piece of river cane or another piece of elderberry. But for right now, I'll just leave this guy right here. Rod's almost heated up. Okay. So we've got this guy burned out slightly larger. That top one would play better for me. I think that would be it. I've got some friends that only make the saddle blocks like we're talking. And they always make them out of this river cane or something like that. Let's cut one up real quick. Let's see if that helps any. I'm doing this video this way today so that you guys can see what it takes to make these flutes. Sometimes a little experimentation. Sometimes it's a little bit of checking this or that to see if it helps any. And if it does, you need to remember that for next time. If it doesn't, you need to remember that for next time. Let's see. So this one here is not producing any sound for me. Let's go back. If it's not producing sound for you, then you know it has something to do with the air, whether it's the supply coming in or where it's hitting the sharp little edge that we created right here. Still not quite doing what I wanted to. Let's see. I see. So basically we have, oops. The track area was not deep enough. You can tell by that little whisper of a tone that it puts out that it could be so much more that it was doing. Getting better. I might need to go back to my track tool here in just a second and use it to burn this area just a little bit deeper, because it's not quite deep enough. It's still making a little whisper of a sound, which is not what we want, right? want it to be loud and clear, and beautiful sounding, and just the most amazing flute you've ever heard in the entire world. And you hear what I did with my little poker I've been using, and how it's improved the sound quite a bit. Likewise, the fire will do a whole lot more. So, yep, definitely getting better. Things getting better all the time. You guys are thinking, Charlie, wait a minute. Stick with flute making. Don't sing. Okay. So I burnt the track area a little bit more. Let's see what it sounds like now. Blows pretty good on the top note, but when you start going to the next notes, they're really quiet. And of course, I have several ideas of what may be causing it. A little bit experimentation is usually the best thing. I'm going to sand a slant on the edge of my little block here so that it slants upward and lets the air out and up. Let's see what happens. That's much, much better. And one last time. Use this guy. Okay. I think I'm reasonably happy with that. I'm going to go ahead and turn my fire back off. And so we have a block that I think is functional now. So 4-hole flute, how about that? Let me give you some numbers here, because I know a lot of you are thinking, just get on with it, give me the measurements. Okay, so this distance from here to here isn't really so important, because obviously you can have a mouthpiece all the way up there. It's not going to affect the way it's placed for the most part. From the back edge of this 1/4-inch square hole, the first hole is exactly 5 inches. Anybody that needs it converted to metric, please go to Yahoo or Google and type in 5 inches equals how many millimeters, and it will come up for you just like that. So 5 inches. I do switch back and forth a lot, so I apologize for that. The next hole is going to be 6 1/8 of an inch. 6 1/8 of an inch from the top of the sound hole. The next hole, oh my goodness, there's so many 16ths down there, I'm going to have to count them. It's going to be 7 5.5 16ths. I think if you made it, basically if you made it 7 8 16ths, oh wait, that's not 8 16ths. Just kidding with you guys. Anyway, if you made it 7 7 16ths, I think you're going to be good. 7 6 16ths is probably really what we're looking at. I think I moved my measuring tool, so this one's 7 6 16ths of an inch from here to there. Once again, you can type that in Google, believe it or not, or you can do the math and figure out what 6 16ths are. I mean, my kids would really kick my butt right now for not reducing the fraction and telling the truth. But anyway, so the next one after 7 6 16ths, we're looking at 8 9 16ths. So 8 9 16ths is the last one. The bottom of this guy is roughly 11.5 inches long. You might need to cut that off a little shorter or longer, depending on what the inside diameter of your material is. The inside diameter of this piece of elderberry here is about a 1/2 inch. Exactly a 1/2 inch. To get, you know, if you have a material that is slightly oblong in here, not perfectly round, I'm going to take a good average, but it doesn't usually fluctuate that much in many North American weeds and stalk plants. Some other plants do, but not very much. So that's about a 1/2 inch in diameter on the inside. And you hear it is a minor pentatonic scale. So it plays really good, nice minor pentatonic scale, has several additional notes that you don't get on most 4 or 5 and 6 hole flutes. You can play the major scale on them too, of course. So kind of cool. Made out of elderberry, really pretty flute. I think I might have somebody special in mind I'm going to give this one to, and that'll be it. So once again, thank you guys so very much for asking all these wonderful questions about flute making. I've answered a lot of them on just simple emails sent back and forth. Of course, a lot of them are answered in a lot of our other videos. And like this one, what materials can you make flutes out of? Oh my gosh, lots and lots of materials. If I find something really unique or kind of unusual, I might make one out of it and show you that. I've looked around and I've made flutes out of just about everything in the world at this point. So lots of good materials. A tobacco stalk, once again, kind of cool. One of my buddy Greyhawk Perkins, fellow musician and tobacco enthusiast, so kind of cool. But this guy here's a piece of elderberry. You've seen some of everything. I'm going to go ahead and finish at the end of the video the flute made out of saw palmetto, because I wanted to have one of those for myself. A really special little flute made of a really special material, old Indian plant. And one of our next videos, of course, will be making flutes in really low tones, which I know a lot of you are looking forward to. Lots of questions about those too. If you have any other questions, shoot us an email, send us a question on our website. It's bluebearflutes.com, BLUEBEARFLUTES.com, and find us on Facebook under Blue Bear Arts. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching our videos. Let us know what you think, and happy flute making. Charlie Mato-Toyela signing out again. Take care.